Mexico City. Choked with traffic, accidents don't wait to happen in this sprawling metropolis of 20 million people. The driver of a truck carrying 3,000 gallons of gasoline tries to beat a train at an unmarked intersection. He slams into the passing railroad cars, fire and smoke rising into the air. While firefighters struggle to make it through snarled traffic, the fire heats the gas to a dangerous level. Cars pass by as if nothing is happening, but pressure is building by the second. The tank explodes, emitting a towering cloud of smoke and fire. Just before the explosion, police evacuate the train, but a boy ventures onto the tracks. A policeman runs to save the child, arriving just in time to shield the boy from the blast. The policeman suffers second and third degree burns. The driver goes into hiding to avoid arrest. Seoul, South Korea. A liquefied petroleum gas station is burning. Then, the fire reaches a large fuel canister. Windows are shattered and dozens of cars destroyed in the mammoth explosion. 20 people are injured. Countless more will remember the powerful blast. A Taiwanese tanker carrying flammable liquid collides with a truck. The cameraman moves close to the flames to catch the resulting fire on tape. But he doesn't expect what happens next. Blown backwards by the blast, the cameraman falls, dropping his camera. Remarkably, he retrieves it and continues taping. El Segundo, California. Firefighters from 6 cities are brought in to fight this fire at an oil refinery's high-pressure unit. Before they can put the blaze out, it explodes. Even the suburbs aren't free from the wrath of explosions. In a North Miami neighborhood, this power and light transformer catches fire and explodes. Oil rigs have one of the most dangerous jobs on Earth. Surrounded by nothing but the deep sea, their avenue of escape in case of trouble is severely limited. When a fire starts on this oil rig, workers are trapped as the flames engulf the highly flammable area. A huge explosion of oil and gas rocks the North Sea rig, illuminating the night sky. When dawn breaks, rescuers survey the wreckage. It is the world's worst oil disaster. It takes $1 billion and countless hours of research to put a rocket up in space. But it doesn't always turn out the way we hope. Day at Cape Canaveral, until 13 seconds after the liftoff of this Delta rocket.
We have had an anomaly. We We had liftoff of Delta II launch vehicle from Cape Canaveral Air Station, and we just had a problem with the vehicle on the pad.
Huge chunks of the $55 million rocket rain down on the base below. As this experimental NASA rocket gets ready to land, one of 4 landing gear mechanisms fails to deploy. The rocket tips over and explodes. Ending any thoughts that it is no longer in its experimental stage. This rocket, carrying an American satellite, is launched in mainland China. The explosion and crash that follow are initially cloaked in secrecy by the Chinese government. But thanks to an Israeli engineer, this amateur videotape tells the real story. From takeoff, things start to go wrong with the rocket. Swerving off course after only 2 seconds, it nosedives into a nearby village and military base. While Chinese officials try to downplay the damage, the images paint a grim picture of what actually occurred. Unexpected explosions are difficult to combat. They are almost impossible to predict. Here is what happens in St. Louis when magnesium, an ingredient used in fireworks, ignites. City firefighters arrive quickly to battle the blaze. Because of the nature of magnesium, water will cause a series of blasts before extinguishing the fire. And water is the only tool firefighters have. Like an enormous fireworks show, numerous explosions rattle houses miles away. Even things meant to entertain can unexpectedly explode. Here, revelers are enjoying a fireworks show, being launched from a hot air balloon, when the fireworks container suddenly falls from the sky. People are sent running for cover as it starts shooting out missiles like some wartime firefight. Even without fireworks, balloons can be involved in unexpected explosions, as 2 people learned in their brush with disaster. At New Mexico's annual Albuquerque International Balloon Festival, a balloonist is asked to take a reporter up for a ride. With wind blowing at 8 miles per hour, festival officials issue a warning, but the pilot decides to lift off anyway. 10 minutes into the flight, winds start to gust, and the balloon is suddenly at nature's mercy. Desperately searching for a place to land, he spots a seemingly clear field. But he doesn't see a set of power lines until seconds before impact. Acting quickly, he shuts off the propane and tells his passenger to hit the bottom of the basket, just as they crash into the lines.
Uh-oh. That didn't sound good, did it?
But that is just a hint of things to come. After initial sparks, a circuit breaker shuts off the current, but the balloon hangs helplessly from the lines. Then, less than a minute later, an unexpected explosion. The line they are hanging on has a breaker that is programmed to send out a test charge, and 10,000 volts is sent surging down the line. The passenger suffers only minor injuries. The pilot suffers 6 broken bones. Ramstein, Germany, August 1988. Spectators are gathered for one of Europe's premier air shows. The Italian Air Force is executing a difficult stunt in which a pilot flies his jet directly through a heart-shaped formation. Plunges into the crowd, sending bystanders the worst air show disaster in history. Here, a man uses explosives to break up an icy river in Quebec, a complicated procedure that must be performed with great care. He accidentally crosses wires. A fellow blaster runs out to help him, and when he sees the man's extensive injuries, yells out for help. When rescuers arrive, they work furiously to aid the fallen blaster. Finally, paramedics arrive to rush the victim to the hospital. The man is seriously injured, but survives.
Yes, we have a limited amount of forestry and...
The explosion is the perfect expression of a terrorist's twisted mind. It not only illustrates the fervor of these fanatics, but it also creates a spectacle that immediately draws attention to their cause. Terrorists all over the world have used bombs to make their point. They can strike anyone, anytime, anywhere.
Bombs, when they go off, they leave very little in the way of clues. There's not much there to go around and try and figure out who put this here and whatever.
Terrorists had planted bombs in this building in Peru long before they started a blaze which almost killed firefighters. Firefighters blown off the ladder suffer second and third degree burns on their hands and faces. The blast also throws 2 firefighters inside the facility completely out of the building. In Spain, the last of 3 car bombs planted by Basque terrorists explodes. In 1971, Palestinian terrorists explode bombs in 3 airliners in Jordan. The blast opened Western eyes to the threat of terrorism. Working to combat terrorists, scientists have tested other ways to snuff out terrorist bombs, but with limited success. So governments decided to fight fire with fire and created counter-terrorism teams. Here, a British counter-terrorist, part of the famed SAS team, throws a grenade into the Iranian embassy in London. He and his team successfully capture the terrorists holding hostages inside. In recent years, terrorism has moved onto American shores with shattering consequences. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, this ATF surveillance camera captures a terrorist firebombing at an abortion clinic. This clandestine video of the crime allows authorities to arrest the man shortly after the incident. Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Terrorists roll a homemade bomb made of 1,100 pounds of TNT into a hotel resort and casino. On it is an extortion note demanding $3 million in cash. When officials lose contact with the blackmailers, their only course of action is to evacuate the facility and try and destroy the bomb with a remote control explosive. Their efforts fail, and the bomb goes off, ripping through 6 of the casino's 11 floors and causing millions of dollars in damage. Television captures militant explosions, but in one incident, Guatemala, An accused murderer armed with a grenade takes 2 people hostage for more than 20 hours. Finally, he releases the 2 hostages. Then, he detonates the grenade. Butte, Montana. A 37-year-old man is sitting in his car in a busy intersection. Sheriff Bob Butorovich approaches the car to talk to him, and the distraught man demands that his wife and child be brought to the scene.
I was able to see approximately 25 to 30 gallons of gasoline and then large cylinders of gunpowder. And in his right hand, he had an electrical switch.
The man checks his rearview mirror to see if someone is sneaking up on him, but fails to see the police officer letting air out of his tires to keep him from driving away. Negotiations last for 2.5 hours, and then the sheriff notices something wrong.
His thumb started to tremble, and when I bent over to talk to him through the window, he let it hit him.
Butorovich is blown over the car behind him, but amazingly suffers only minor injuries after pulling off his burning jacket.
Right after the detonation, I knew I was completely engulfed in flames, and the next thing I knew, I was on the other side of the car.
Incredibly, the bomber stumbles out of his car's burnt shell, badly injured and on fire. Investigators had moved away from the scene when moments later a second explosion rocks the area. Five pipe bombs go off underneath the driver's seat of the car.
Suicide bomb. He definitely wanted an audience when he went out.
Despite being burned over most of his body, the bomber survives and is placed under psychiatric evaluation. We all have a fascination with flying, but some of the most horrifying blasts occur when airplanes explode. In this military test, a missile clips an unmanned F-4 Phantom jet. Although the weapon doesn't have an exploding head, by taking out a piece of the plane's tail fin, it turns an aerodynamic marvel into a flailing piece of useless metal. As it drifts helplessly to the earth, the F-4 explodes into a fire. Air shows are opportunities for families to spend an afternoon watching flying machines perform amazing feats. But even with the best trained pilots, the unexpected occurs. At the prestigious Paris Air Show, a Russian pilot is demonstrating the climbing ability of his twin-engine MiG-29 when something goes wrong. The right engine of his state-of-the-art jet abruptly shuts off and the plane starts to dive. Back to Earth, the pilot successfully steers clear of the crowd below. At an altitude of only 100 feet, he ejects. The MiG crashes only 50 feet from where the pilot falls. Miraculously, he suffers only minor injuries. Later, it is determined that the cause of the accident is a bird being sucked into the right engine. Even with the perfect pilot in the cockpit, airplanes are at the mercy of natural conditions. The very idea of landing jets on a moving ship is a risky one, with the balance between plane and carrier often unstable. Here we see what it can do to an F-9 Phantom jet. Amazingly, the pilot lived to fly again. Atlanta was chosen by the Olympic Committee to host the 100th Summer Games. But the FBI believes Atlanta has also been targeted by a serial bomber. 6 months after the Centennial Park explosion, this building, which houses an abortion clinic and several businesses, including a daycare center, was also bombed. The first blast occurred as parents arrived to pick up their children.
It was just an incredible explosion. I remember the glass shattering. It really shakes you to the bone.
Stadler sends his kids home with friends after the blast and begins to give interviews to the media when he spots his wife arriving.
The only thing I wanted to do then was just hug her and say, it's okay. It's okay. It's over.
And we hugged each other. And I said, let's just step away for a second. And as we turned to walk away, that's when the second bomb went off.
The powerful blast knocks a cameraman back. He spins around, drops his camera, and rolls onto the ground. 6 people are injured, and for the Stadlers, the explosion hits too close to home.
When I walked into what was our girls' nursery room and seeing it totally destroyed, that's when it hit me. What if the twins would have been in that room?
And there were times where we would just be standing over their crib, crying, because we were so lucky.
Northern Ireland has cost thousands of lives and claimed countless injuries, both on English and Irish soil. For 30 years, fear has prowled the streets in the form of an urban war, the threat of a deadly blast lurking around every corner.
In Belfast, nothing is simple.
Reporter Christopher Wayne has been in Northern Ireland for 2 days when he was asked to report on a fire set by the IRA. As firefighters battled the blaze, Wayne began his report. What he didn't know was that the terrorists had left a bomb inside the building.
Fire was opened up.
There was this thumping whoosh behind me and a searing heat behind me. And I remember seeing the cameraman, Paul Carlton, and he was staggering back, holding his face. The initial thought was, my God, I'm on fire.
Wayne is lucky and escapes injury. But a fireman inside the building isn't so fortunate. After the fireman is blown out of a window, he lies injured on the road as his colleagues rush to his side.
People often ask me, when you look at that video, would you describe the expression on your face? Well, I would describe it as one of pure, unadulterated terror.
London's West End. Police move swiftly to evacuate the street. An explosive has already gone off inside a department store.
One more, please move.
As police continue their efforts, a second bomb explodes. Windows shatter, buildings tremble, and people are shaken by the blast. Still, one man goes back for his package. When the IRA's first bombing campaign failed to gain enough ground, they targeted the heart of British government, the Prime Minister's residence at 10 Downing Street. A first bomb is fired into the backyard garden behind the Prime Minister's residence.
Go back up the street. It is not safe. Move.
Additional bombs misfire and destroy the bomber's van. Peter Gurney, one of England's top bomb disposal experts, was in the area that day.
The heat was very, very fierce, and when I got close, I could see through the flames 3 mortar launch tubes.
It was one of the most unusual bombing attacks ever launched, but luckily, only one of the 4 mortars in the van explode, and Gurney is able to defuse the rest.
Every terrorist bomb depends upon the workmanship and the ingenuity of the bomber.
One of the most ingenious IRA bombers was Sean O'Doherty, who was only 15 when he planted his first bomb.
As I approached this target, I had this incredible feeling that once I lit the fuse on this bomb and planted it, that I would be frozen with fear. You press the button, and the most phenomenal, awful, incredible scene just happens in front of your eyes. Virtually the whole land pushes up to meet the sky in a great thrust, a shockwave, you know, that you never expected, and almost throws you back with its power and violence, you know. But within what seems like seconds, you know, there's a terrible stillness.
As the IRA bombing campaign intensified, O'Doherty planted dozens of bombs in cities across Northern Ireland and England. From his flat overlooking the city, he was able to watch the bombs he had placed earlier in the day go off.
I heard a lot of people. I heard a lot of soldiers, and I'm sure I heard a lot of police.
The former IRA bomber has spent most of his adult life in prison, where he wrote letters of apology to his victims.
You know, it's a tale of horror, and that's all that can be said.
Even the best bomb experts, like Peter Gurney, can be taken by surprise. Belfast, Ireland. A car bomb is found, and Gurney is called in to destroy the explosive. Gurney equips a robot to deliver an explosive charge to demolish the car bomb. He hides behind the tank to prepare his bomb. What he doesn't know is that there is a malfunction, and while he's kneeling, his explosive goes off.
All I can remember was a tremendous great blue light. It's a hammer blow over chest and stomach. I saw my number 2 rolling over and over on the ground, obviously injured, and my driver staggering away, holding his face, also injured. I ran across to them and gave them what assistance I could.
But Gurney still finishes his job. He walks up to the car, breaks the window, and places a new explosive inside.
If you don't fear a bomb, you don't respect it. If you don't respect a bomb, you die very quickly.
July 1994. It is just after 10 p.m., 150 miles off the coast of Japan. The USS Kitty Hawk is launching and landing planes around the clock. Chief Dixon was on the carrier that night.
It was a pitch black, dark night, real dark. No stars, no nothing. The ship was rocking that night. What we saw was ship, aircraft. It kept on disappearing up and down because the ship was just swaying back and forth.
12 seconds before landing, the ship's signal officer tells the pilot to boost power.
Just a little low, little power.
At the last second, he realizes the plane is losing height.
No power, power.
The F-14 smashes into the carrier deck.
And it was amazing because it was just flames come shooting down the deck because the aircraft had split in half. I dropped flat and I was looking back and I said, God, I don't want to die tonight.
The pilots eject as the plane erupts in flames. Dixon and his crew rush to douse the fire with foam. The co-pilot lands safely on the deck, but the pilot's chute is caught by gusting winds and he is blown directly into the flames.
We saw him hit the deck, but there was fuel and then it caught on fire. He caught on fire.
Dixon charges into the inferno to save the pilot. He extinguishes the fire and the pilot is pulled from the blaze. Remarkably, the pilot only suffers minor injuries. Dixon and 14 members of the deck crew are awarded medals for performance and bravery.
You can talk about, hey, this person is a hero and this person is a hero, but I don't look at it as that. It's not about medals. You do it because, hey, it's the way people do.
The Nevada desert. Fire breaks out at a chemical facility. The first explosion rocks the plant. there is even a greater danger lurking. The plant manufactures a rocket fuel component used to launch the space shuttle. After the Challenger explosion, NASA put the shuttle program on hold, but never canceled their order. So hundreds of containers of the chemical are stockpiled at the plant. When the fire reaches them, they explode. In the end, the explosion costs $70 million in damage and destroys a neighboring plant. This unmanned rocket, the giant Titan 4A, is carrying a classified spy satellite when something goes terribly wrong. Its explosion destroys a $1 billion payload and sends scientists back to the drawing board. It is the most expensive satellite payload ever lost in a rocket explosion.
Here's his plan.